The moment he saw her across the crowded military hospital courtyard, pushing a stroller with 5 children orbiting her like silent planets, the air seemed to drain from his lungs. The single-dad veteran who had survived mortar fire, sleepless nights, and the slow grind of poverty felt weaker in that instant than he ever had on the battlefield, because the woman he once loved was standing there alive, strong, untouchable, and he had no idea that fate was about to reveal she had become the deputy defense commander of the nation. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that prove life can change when we least expect it, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel name, to support meaningful stories like this. He had not planned to be at the hospital that morning. The visit was meant to be routine, a follow-up for the knee injury that never truly healed after his last deployment. He moved slowly, favoring one leg, his jacket a size too big, his eyes trained on the floor as if it held answers the world above no longer offered. Life after service had not been kind to him. He was a single father to one quiet daughter who waited every evening in a small apartment that smelled of reheated food and worry. The medals he once earned sat in a drawer, dull and forgotten, while overdue bills and rejection letters filled the kitchen table. He had learned how to survive with less, how to stretch hope thin, how to wake up every day with dignity even when the world seemed indifferent. Then he saw her. Time did something strange, folding in on itself. Years vanished, and memories rushed back with painful clarity. She looked different, older but steadier, her posture confident, her movements deliberate. The 5 children around her were not chaotic, they were disciplined, attentive, as if they understood the gravity of her presence. He felt a sharp confusion twist inside him. This did not align with the last image he carried of her, the exhausted woman who had walked away when the weight of his trauma became too heavy, when love was no longer enough to hold them together. He told himself to look away. He told himself it did not matter. But his feet refused to move. Something inside him needed to understand how 2 lives that once shared everything could diverge so completely. He watched as medical staff subtly straightened when she passed, as officers nodded with respect, as space seemed to open before her without her asking. It was then he noticed the insignia on her coat, the understated markings that spoke volumes to those who knew. A cold realization settled over him, slow and undeniable. She was no longer just his ex-wife living an ordinary life. She had risen into a world of command and consequence, a world he had been pushed out of. His own life replayed in contrast. After the divorce, everything had collapsed quietly. He took whatever work he could find, often underpaid and overlooked. Nights were spent staring at the ceiling, listening to his daughter breathe, wondering if he had failed her the same way he had failed his marriage. Therapy appointments were missed because of overtime shifts. Pride kept him from asking for help. He carried his past like a rucksack filled with stones, refusing to put it down even when his body begged him to rest. Seeing her again cracked something open. Not anger, not jealousy, but a deep, aching grief for the man he used to be and the life he thought he would have. He wondered if she saw him too, if she recognized the way his shoulders slumped or the careful way he moved, as if the world might break him if he wasn't cautious. He wondered if she remembered the nights they planned futures that never came. The days that followed were restless. He tried to return to his routine, but the image of her stayed with him, haunting and luminous. Questions gnawed at him. How had she managed 5 children and a career that demanded absolute strength? How had she transformed pain into power while he was still learning how to stand? The unfairness of it whispered in his mind, but it was quickly drowned by something else, admiration. She had not been crushed by life. She had commanded it. Change did not arrive all at once. It began with discomfort. He started attending his physical therapy consistently, then the counseling sessions he once avoided. He began to speak about things he had buried for years. The process was humiliating and exhausting, but slowly, almost imperceptibly, the fog lifted. He realized that survival alone was not the same as living, and that his daughter deserved a father who believed in tomorrow. Weeks later, their paths crossed again at a community veterans event. This time, he did not look away. He stood straighter, not because he felt strong, but because he chose to be present. The recognition in her eyes was immediate, followed by a pause heavy with history. There was no dramatic confrontation, no explosion of emotion, just 2 people standing in the shadow of who they used to be. He saw then that her strength had been forged the same way his had, through loss, responsibility, and the refusal to surrender to despair. Learning the truth about her position came quietly, through overheard conversations and subtle confirmations. Deputy Defense Commander. The words carried weight, but instead of crushing him, they did something unexpected. They inspired him. If she could rebuild from the same ruins, maybe his story was not over either. Maybe the chapter he was living was not the ending, but the painful middle where growth hides behind struggle. Life began to shift. He found better work through a veteran support program. His confidence returned in small increments. His daughter noticed before anyone else, smiling more, laughing freely, no longer worried about the heaviness she once sensed in him. He stopped measuring his worth by comparison and started defining it by effort, integrity, and love. The final time he saw his ex-wife was months later, from a distance. She stood at a podium, speaking with calm authority, the 5 children seated proudly nearby. He did not feel small. He felt grateful. Grateful for the past that shaped him, for the pain that taught him endurance, and for the quiet strength he had rediscovered within himself. Their lives had taken different paths, but both had led to purpose. As this story comes close to its end, if it touched something deep inside you, if it reminded you that broken chapters can still lead to powerful endings, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to channel name to keep stories like this alive. And before the final moments fade, leave a comment below sharing what part of this story resonated with you the most. Your words might inspire someone silently watching. Because sometimes the greatest victory isn't being seen as powerful by the world, but finally believing in your own worth after thinking you had lost everything.